We spent a lot of time talking about this last night in Advanced Cult Book Club. You can get more details through the Patreon, but how cult kids and more broadly third culture kids, military kids, and diplomats kids and even veterans to a certain extent, you're given one choice of the way to talk about your experience, and that is good stuff. Like, you can only talk about the good stuff, right? Like, and this is even true after our family has left the cults as well, but they don't want to unpack, they don't want to deconstruct. And it's very much like, oh, it was a good thing, you know. AA is the same way. And the thing is, like, there's nuance to everything. And oh my God, homeschoolers, right? Nobody listens to adult homeschoolers when we talk about the negative stuff. Nobody. The second we start talking about negative homeschooling stuff, it's like a MAGA towards someone with blue hair. They just can't hear you anymore. And they're so convinced, especially secular homeschoolers, that they're going to do it so right, even though it's really hard to find happily homeschooled adults. And, you know, we talk about this with cult deconstruction, that people act like you either have to say it's all negative or it's all positive. And like, I promise you, growing up in the world's most notorious religious schmex cult wasn't all positive. But I'm glad that I grew up in Brazil and Mexico. I'm glad that I'm trilingual. I'm glad that I know all this stuff about cults today and I can make my living knitting and talking to the internet and writing books, right? Like, it's not binary. Only in cults do they act like there's only one script, right? I had this same attitude when I went to write my book and was being critical about my service in the military. This is Uncultured, about growing up in the Children of God cult and then going into the cult of the US military. You can get signed copies here. And people sort of came at me with like, well, which are you? A disgruntled veteran or are you proud? Both. The answer is both. The answer is my story about how I'm the only woman going out on this patrol is important, and so is the fact that I got pulled aside by 3 senior officers and told to watch my back against those American soldiers that I was patrolling with, right? It's both. Our cult experiences were both, right? Nobody survives years and years and years of something if there's nothing good to it, right? So obviously there are good things. But I think it's very telling that if you talk to third culture kids, the answer to, are you happy about the way you grew up, is almost always, it's complicated, right? I'm glad I was exposed to other parts of the world. Also, I'll never truly fit in America, right? Both of those things exist. And I tell this to homeschool parents all of the time. Like, no matter what reason you are homeschooling for. I mean, there are legitimate homeschool reasons because of America. That being said, when moderate countries make homeschooling illegal, that's one of the best protections for children out there. But whatever your reasons for homeschooling are, however valid they are, and however good of an education you give your child, they're going to feel othered as an adult. Because if your children do not have the experience of 90% of the people they're going to be hanging out with, especially in middle school and high school, they're going to feel othered. They're going to be an invisible immigrant. Olivia Rodrigo wrote a song about this called The Ballad of the Homeschool Kid, where she talks about how even as an adult, every move you make feels like social schmoocide because you didn't get that time in your own country. And that's valid. And parents, what I don't see is parents of homeschooled adults holding space for them to discuss the negatives, right? Just like parents of cult survivors don't. And I will tell you, my mom, she's on here, by the way, Grieving Next Door Mama, is amazing in the way that she has managed to hold space for her 8 children to deconstruct and to talk to her. And she's made it very clear to me and to all my siblings that like we can talk to her about our trauma from growing up in a cult and we don't really have to worry about like her feelings or her being upset and throwing that back in our face. And I think that is extremely important. But just so we all know, this whole like you can never be upset about it thing, this is one of the problems with raising children in alternate ways. Your child gets to grow up and have whatever feelings about that they want to. And if you're just like, nope, it was a good thing, that's not going to be helpful to your adult child who's trying to deconstruct and unpack their experience. I'm Danielle, a scholar of cults, extreme groups, extremely bad leadership.